Hello, Professor. Over the course of this class, I saw similarities between business presentations and weekly lectures. The thing that stood out to me in this class is the work you put in to personalize your lectures, specifically with prayers relevant to the events of the week. This fit perfectly with what I learned from the book Presenting to Win. Presenting to Win was written by highly renowned corporate presentation coach Jerry Wiseman. To me, the most intriguing thing about Mr. Wiseman is his background in theater and how he bridged the gap into the business world. He graduated from Stanford University with a master's in speech and drama. Shortly after, he began his career in television. At the request of a friend, Mr. Wiseman begrudgingly accepted an offer to coach the CEO of Compaq in the art of presentations. The success of this meeting opened the eyes of Mr. Wiseman's friend to an untapped business opportunity. The opportunity saw him meeting with CEOs of various tech companies, which became the launchpad for a successful career as a corporate presentation coach. This should serve as an example to all of us that opportunities can appear where we least expect them. Keep your eyes open. Your first or next opportunity is coming. In his book, Presenting to Win, Mr. Wiseman discussed the principles that make a presentation successful. One of the most important principles is what he calls the WIFI. WIFI stands for what's in it for you, and the you is the audience. When giving a presentation, the audience will tend to be more engaged if they understand how they will benefit. Most business presentations are not going to be to charity events. That being said, the single most important topic on the audience's mind will be what is in it for them. If the presentation does not clearly define this, the presenter runs the risk of losing his or her audience. As you can see, although all parts of a presentation are important, the WIFI is easily the single most important topic in a presentation. It is also important to note that all facts, stories, and ideas should have a clear audience benefit. To better signify the importance of the WIFI, we can view this in a highly probable example. Say you have spent the last few years working tirelessly to develop your new widget. Sales have increased locally, and you have the opportunity of distributing across the United States. To do so, you need a capital infusion to improve processes and cut manufacturing costs. You have a meeting with investors, and you have been preparing for weeks. The time to present has come, and the main investor gets an emergency call and has to leave. You now have 5 minutes to get their time and get your point across. If you focus solely on how great your product and sales are, you'll probably lose the investor. However, if you focus on the WIFI, with real numbers, reasonable profit projections, and the projected return on investment they would receive, you might have them sold. Our goal is to get the audience on board with our idea. This is known as audience advocacy and occurs when the audience believes the wants expressed in the presentation meet their needs. For instance, if you were to ask a random person for $100 so you can start a business, you'll probably be turned down. However, if you explain to the same person what the business does, what the market demand is, and that a $100 investment today will return them $10,000 over the next 5 years, you'd probably get their attention. The difference between these two examples are aha moments, which are moments of understanding and a solid WIFI. Mr. Wiseman has said presentations are like stories. And like any story, they should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Presentations are also designed with a motive. We want to move our audience toward our objective, our point B. The point B could be a call to action or understanding or the acceptance of information. Like any good story, the beginning should grab the audience's attention and start the audience on the path to the objective. The middle of the story should deliver the aha moments to help the audience fully understand why your product or idea is relevant and how they will benefit. Finally, the end of the story should direct them to action, to be in a place to sign, item to buy, or an idea to get behind. So far, we see the importance of having a WIFI for all of the facts presented and the need to understand we are telling a story when presenting. However, how do we really know who the you is in the WIFI, or what motivators would drive the audience? There's only one answer to this, and this is to do our research. We need to know our audience's desires, problems, positions, hopes, and dreams as well as we can. If we know our audience, who our audience is, and what they want, it'll help us present to the correct you in our WIFIs. So how can we get to know our audience and understand what it is they actually want? There are many ways to approach this, but the best practices will change based on the particular situation or availability of information. The first step is to get to know your audience during the preparation phase. should take time to research the company, understand where they are in the market, and identify their strengths and weaknesses. For publicly traded companies, the company's 10K report is a good start. The fact that you're presenting to a group implies that you have made some type of contact with at least one employee or consultant. Reach out to them, ask questions, and find out if there are any other employees you could talk to before you actually get on site. You want to know what type of people you're presenting to. What is the corporate culture? What does their average workday involve? How do they best receive information? You really want to know your audience as both workers and people. If you can find out what problems they face and how you can solve them, you can tell your audience how your presentation will solve their problem. If you do this, you'll have found the best Wi-Fi there is. Another time to get to know your audience is immediately before the presentation. You may be one of a few presenters during a meeting that could last a couple days. Take time to schmooze with as many people, members of the audience, whoever you can get a hold of as you possibly can. Oftentimes there's social mixers that will help you with this opportunity. If not, you'll typically find more than a few attendees at the bar of the hotel where they're staying. They can provide insight into the company, their day-to-day operations, any problems they're facing, and what they hope to get from your presentation. Finally, it's a good idea to ask questions during the presentation to keep the audience engaged. You can use this as a barometer to measure how your presentation is going and personalize it. Mr. Wiseman repeats throughout his book the need to personalize and use the correct you. Take the time during the presentation to engage your audience whenever possible. One final idea which I felt was most important was how to capture our audience. In Chapter 5 of Presenting to Win, Mr. Wiseman makes the point that your audience is most likely not focused on you at the beginning of your presentation. Most of us are preoccupied with something we are working on, personal matters, or simply talking to the person sitting next to them. If you were to launch straight into the meat of your presentation, many of the audience members would find themselves trying to catch up to understand what you're talking about. This goes directly against one of Mr. Wiseman's rules, which is don't make them think. Jerry Wiseman suggests using an opening gambit, which is a short statement, to capture your audience's attention and give you a good transition to seamlessly begin your presentation. In his book, he provides 7 examples for opening gambits. The first example is the question. This can be a question directed to the audience to elicit a response, or simply a rhetorical question to get them thinking. The second example is the factoid. This is just stating a fact relevant to the presentation. The idea is to grasp the audience's attention so they see a problem which your presentation will solve. Next, we have the retrospective perspective view. In the past, we used to type our letters. That was a slow and inefficient process. Today, we use a word processor or computers which save time and increase efficiency. In the near future, this process will be improved even more. What is the next logical transition? Let me tell you about XYZ processors. In this example, you can see that we've started with something and kind of transitioned on into what the future is. So we looked back, retrospect, and we have a perspective view of a new product. Another opening gambit type is the anecdote, and Mr. Wiseman does not mean a joke. He tells us the idea here is to lend some humanity to what may be a boring subject. This is used most effectively when you can use a story to segue into your presentation. Next, we have the quotation. Hold on a second. I missed a slide. Next, we have the quotation. Quotation is used in a presentation should be one made about your company's product or service. Number 6 on the list is the aphorism, which is simply a familiar saying. You can use the saying as is or manipulate it to meet your needs. As long as it's relevant, familiar, captures the attention and helps get them on the path to your point B, it'll be a good opening gambit. An example used in the Presenting to Win book was used by a speech recognition company, was easier said than done. Finally, one of the most popular opening gambits is the analogy. An analogy is a comparison of 2 things. It gives you a way to compare what may be a new or difficult topic to something the audience can relate to. The first example that comes to mind is the famous analogy from the movie Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. All of the information I have learned in this class has been extremely valuable, mostly because it reminded me of the importance of communicating with my peers and others in the industry. I will use what I have learned to better position myself for future opportunities. In fact, I've already made it a point to ensure my emails take a positive tone, and I'm reaching out to others to better understand where they are coming from and ways I may be able to help. I'm also reminded to stop giving reasons I can't and figure out how I can. I appreciate the class, and thank you for watching.